Everybody around you is a Negro.
And I don't even like to do it, but I know it gets views. So.
Exactly, it's content. Like, I didn't understand a lot of Black Lives Matter stuff until I really sat and thought about
Careful. Cheers.
Cheers.
What do you think about the setup?
Neat. It's
Neat?
clean.
Clean? That's good. Okay, so welcome everybody to the first official podcast episode. Very excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. We'll talk about some skating, but you know, for the most part, we're going to just talk about anything. So I hope you guys are along for the ride. And if you aren't into tough discussions, or if that stuff triggers you, just go enjoy the skating videos. You don't have to watch this one.
I mean, or take a shot every time you get triggered.
No, I won't. You can.
Well, them, not us.
Okay, yeah, them.
Are we triggering ourselves here?
I'm never getting triggered
Exactly.
by anything. Well, today we have my good friend, co-host, Zay. There you go, the official Zay pose.
Yeah, everybody recognizes me by it now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not this guy, that black guy. I'm Xavier. So.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, they kept confusing me.
So do you want to tell them a little about yourself?
Where should I start?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm like 33 years old.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Most people think I'm a lot younger. But yeah, I've been out here. So I don't know where to start.
Let's see. Let's talk about your skating. Like, when did you start skating?
Oh, wow. So my story is the same as a lot of people in the DMV area. I started skating at Crystal Skating Rink. And the first lesson I had, I tried it on quads, and I hated it. And I begged my dad to give me a pair of inline skates. He did. And I took lessons for maybe another 2 sessions, and he said, "You're good." So I skated probably seriously for about a year, like jumping off of stuff.
Right.
I couldn't grind. I didn't have aggressive skates back then. So I was just jumping off of stuff, doing 180s, 360s, and just exercising, playing basketball with my skates on. I did everything with my skates on.
Yeah.
But I didn't skate for a while until the pandemic hit. And then I was like, I'm bored. I need something I can do outside and, not have to deal with the mask policing and all that stuff. So skating is one of those things you could do with a lot low risk. So
yeah.
But it's been a lot better than I expected it to be.
Yeah. So how long has it been on skates for you?
I'd say actively a total of maybe like 3 actual years.
3 years.
Like actually like doing it.
Nice.
But in the meantime, I'm always watching other people's content. So.
Did you find it hard at the beginning when you first started skating? Like, cause me, I've been skating for like 10 plus years or something like that. So I can't even remember back when I started, So was it difficult to find the motivation to keep learning? Because I feel like
No,
a lot of people. No,
I don't have an issue with being motivated for something I love. So
Right.
I like it, so I do it.
Yeah,
That's
because
it.
a lot of people I talk to that are new, they kind of get discouraged. Like, they want to be like, I want to be able to skate backwards. I want to be able to do spins. I want to be able to do all this and
Well, you
stuff.
got to keep doing it.
Yeah, but they just, I don't know.
I think they're setting their goals too high because if you set it too high, you get disappointed. Then you don't want to do it because you're intimidated. It's like you have to
Right.
really just have fun and remember that's the point.
Yeah, I think skating's a thing where like a lot of people who don't skate, they see it and they're like, oh, how hard can that be to learn?
Yeah, and then they're surprised that they actually need some ankle strength.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing I don't think about when people are trying to learn. I'm like, because they do all types of pronation and supination, and I've never had that problem. I was always athletic as a child, so I never had an issue with ankle strength. So,
Interesting. Well, do you want to get into the hard stuff, the tricky stuff?
sure.
Why don't you drop the bomb on them? Tell them more about yourself.
Yeah, people about to get triggered.
Well, the best part about this is it'd be really hard for us to get canceled on this podcast.
People still try. And we'll get into that in a second. I'll
Go ahead
get to it
and
really quickly.
Tell them the big news.
So, I was born with a white girl's name, unfortunately. I changed it to Xavier, meaning I'm transgender. I started my transition when I was about 17, 18 years old. I got my name changed when I was 19. I started hormones when I was 19. And I did hormone therapy for about 3 years, and then I stopped for different reasons. I just didn't like the dependency on the external medication. And I like to be more holistic than anything. So,
Right.
yeah, as I drink, but still, moderation. But the hormones change a lot of things. One of the things is like the way your mind works.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm okay with who I am. I know people think that's ironic because I did transition, but
Sure.
you're not walking in my shoes to know why I made that decision.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've heard people say that are really against transgender people or whatever, they don't agree with it or whatever. I've heard them say, like, why should I accept you for being a different gender now when you didn't want to accept your gender in the first place?
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but that's just...
What does that have to do with anything? And the thing I find interesting is that most people wouldn't know if I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
So
Like, I
once
didn't
they
know for the longest time. So.
Once they know, then they're like, oh, let me treat you this way. Let me respond to you this way. Or I would have guessed. I'm like, I look just like my brother, just shorter.
Right.
Or I look like my father. It's like, so you're making things up in your mind to sort of fit the story or the narrative that you want to have about me. But most people never know. Like, I actually almost got kicked out of school multiple times because the teachers thought I was posing as another student. They thought I was pranking them.
Really?
You know, like, why is this boy here trying to pretend to be this female student? You know, even when I showed him my ID.
When you transitioned, that was like, how?
I was going to college by that point.
So, but that was like, what, 12, 13 years ago, something like that?
I haven't even counted.
Yeah, but yeah. Back then it wasn't as like prevalent as it is now,
no,
would you say? So
absolutely not.
You kind of like...
I didn't even know the term transgender.
Wow.
Where I come from, our culture is we call people by their name. Even if you don't know, you mind your business. Like, if you're not actively trying to pursue something with that person, then why does it even on your mind? You know, like, if you're at the grocery store angry that there's a trans person somewhere in the bathroom, like, so it's just like, mind your business, you know. That's T. That's what we call T. What's their pronoun? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who cares?
What are your pronouns, by the way? Do you?
He and they.
He and they? Okay.
Sometimes I'm femme.
Okay.
Yeah. Most people wouldn't guess that either.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you mind or not, but what was your old name? I don't think I've ever asked you.
I hate that name. You could probably guess it. I said it was a white name. It's pretty popular.
There's a lot of white names.
It starts
Tiffany.
with a C or a K. Tiffany
Oh,
is
Catherine?
neutral. Close. A variation.
Caitlin?
Yeah.
Caitlin, okay. Gotcha.
So I went by,
Cringed when I said
yeah, because, ew, every time I watch, like, Seventh Heaven or something, it's like, Katie, and I'm like, ooh, say that again. So I went by JoJo for a while because my middle name was different. So I was like, but then JoJo the singer came out, she kind of ruined that for me, you know.
So have you found it difficult being trans, like, in the skate community? Has that...
You know, they call them fruit booters, right? So a lot of people are actually
They
queer.
call me fruit booter too.
Yeah,
so.
I don't even know what that is. Like, what is...
It was just a term that they used in, like, the 90s to mean, like, oh, you're gay for skating or whatever.
I guess, okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
I never did too. And then the other joke that they like to say is, oh, what's the hardest part about rollerblading? It's coming out to your parents that you're gay. And it's like...
Well, I came out twice. So, it's not hard for me. Actually, I had to come out a third time. I started dating a guy, and they were like, what? Like, you used to be a lesbian? I'm like, well, not really, but mostly. You know, it's kind of hard to date guys when you look like their brother, you know? They're not really into that, so.
So how was it when you came out to your parents?
You said how old was I?
No, how was it? Like, was it difficult?
Well, when I came out as a lesbian, I was 14.
Uh-huh.
Because I had known since, like, second grade that I liked women. Like, that was pretty clear to me. Like, I had to convince myself to like guys. But they were accepting. It was like the extended family that had problems. Even my brother was homophobic, and he's bisexual or whatever he's. So it was weird. But it was fine. They had no problems with it. My mom sometimes had questions, but it was all good. They defended me, look out for me.
That's really nice. I think that's important to have somebody that supports your decisions.
Absolutely.
You know, if some people are in a situation where they don't have that, and that's got to be tough.
I still had the fear of it initially. You know, I was planning, like, where can I go in case this doesn't work out? What can I do? I was ready. I had my mind ready. I had backpack ready, like, if I need to go tonight. But it was absolutely no problem. Honestly, everybody was like, we thought so. I mean, I was a tomboy most of my life. I didn't look at boys. You know how you see children, you're like, my child is not paying attention to these boys. You start to notice it. So they figured that out quickly.
Did you like feminine stuff when you were growing up, like toys, and did that really?
No, I can't say no or yes, actually. I I'm an active person. People inherently look at a woman or a female being active as masculine.
Right, or
but
tomboy.
I grew up in a family of women who were volleyball players, basketball players. They played various types of sports. They also raised little boys, so they understand being active and going outside and doing fitness.
Right.
I mean, I did gymnastics. I had to wear leotards. That was uncomfortable. It was part of the reason why I quit.
Oh, one thing I do want to tell the audience is I want you guys to put questions down in the comments. I meant to say this at the beginning, but if you guys have any questions, we'll have a new segment on the next episode answering questions from you guys. So definitely put your questions down.
Oh, yeah. Ask them.
Yeah.
Now, some things I'm not going to answer. I already know
No,
which
you have
ones are
to
going to come
answer
out.
every single one. Every single
Shit, they're going to have to pay me. I get paid for that in the past, man.
So what would you say to people who don't agree with people who transition? Like,
I think some of them are valid. There's things I don't necessarily find myself drawn to, and I get where they are as a human being, but it is what it is.
because like I feel like you're kind of different, not
I know what you mean.
different in
I'm
terms
not
of your community.
Triggered, honestly.
Well, like in your community, there's so many people who want to force ideas or opinions on people, and I've never got that vibe from you ever. So I think you are like an outlier within your community. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I've had community leaders come up to me and they're like, oh, what are you doing this today to piss people off? You know, so I had to cancel my Facebook because I saw where it was going. I'm like, if I keep doing this, I'm not going to have a community. So I said, I'm going to mind my business, you know, because people take any slight disagreement as like, oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Right.
Like, it's not that serious.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've seen some posts and stuff where people want to label somebody as a transphobe because they don't want to date a transgender person.
But there's trans people who don't even date other trans people.
Right.
I mean, and even within the community, that is, they consider that a problem, but I'm like, I like what I like. If I like someone with a certain type of experience,
Like
or
if I like girls with
configuration-
blonde hair and not brunettes or whatever, then am I like a brunette phobe? You know what I mean?
I mean, actually, though, are you? Like,
No, I actually like brunettes more than blondes.
just throwing it out there. No, I'm not that type of person. I believe in fairness, and I think, you know, we used to do this exercise in school where you put your arms out, and this is your space.
Right.
Stop touching people, you know, reaching for them to actually have a necessary interaction with them. So I'm not that type of person. Like you said, you notice it. Like, that's legitimately who I am. I don't give a fuck. What
do you think about those people that get mad that somebody doesn't want to date a trans person?
I'm gonna say personally, I don't care. Like, I don't even know how to think about that as far as them getting mad, because I like what I like. There are people who like me, so I'm not thinking about the other world.
You know what I've noticed though is like a lot of people that, I mean, maybe I could be wrong, maybe generalizing, but a lot of people who have that opinion or like those extreme views aren't even transgender themselves.
There's that as well. People have this sense of collective outrage when the people themselves that are in question don't actually care. I've seen it a lot. Like, I made a joke about, you know, things about myself being trans, and people took it as if I was not a trans person making that joke. And so once they realized I was trans, they said, oh, well, you just have internalized transphobia. And I laugh again, because I'm like, I mean, but first of all, I'll say honestly, I never imagined coming into the life being trans in the first place. If it was my choice, I'd have been born aligned the way that I imagined I should have been. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be there in small notes, but at the same time, why can't I make a joke? Why are we so sensitive?
That's crazy. So they called you saying you had transphobia.
Yeah, it was like, they was like, oh, well, I got to figure something out.
That's a new one for me, internalized transphobia. I think they just like to sound smarter than they actually
do.
are.
Absolutely, they do. I had very high marks for comprehension in school. I could say most people did not. So,
and I think that a lot of those people they don't have a lot going for themselves in their lives, and I feel like they want to be seen as like the good person. Like, I'm helping you. Let me help you. You need my help. And it's like, it's not even your
like, hand off.
place.
Like, yeah.
Well, another example of that, well, I don't know, do I agree with that? I don't know if I do agree with
Like,
that.
it's noble to an extent, but after a while, you have to allow that
Yeah.
person the space to actually speak for themselves. And it's going to be a different response depending on who you ask.
Right. The only reason why I say I don't agree with that is because I just thought about, I'll see on Twitter people say, oh, why are you in black people's business? When it's like just like I think with the Will Smith thing, like, oh, you can't speak on this because this is black people's business. I never really understood that because I kind of get what they're saying, but at the same time, it's like everybody can have an opinion and everybody can, I don't know. I feel like if we just cut the conversation off there, it's like we can't learn from each side. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
And
I
for
feel like
me-
that's rude.
And it just doesn't make any sense because for me, I've had a way different upbringing than most white people. You know, going to
I
pretty
was going to
much
say that.
all black school. I mean, we've talked about it before, and so I got to see a little bit of the other side of things. You know, and for people who don't know, basically, when I moved out here to Maryland, I went to a high school that was, I think it was 86% African American, and I think the numbers have went up since then. And so I was the only white person in like.
Yeah, this is one of the
majority of my
most
class.
populated black counties in America.
Uh-huh.
And it's a very amazing experience to be out here. Like,
Yeah.
when I grew up, we had to separate people with the same name by their race. Like, this is white Mike, that's black Mike. Because we had so many people around, we were all together. Like,
Right.
that bothers me because I have little cousins and nephews and people in my, not nephews, I call them that, but
Yeah.
family members who I've seen since they were young and they grew up in a black space. So, you mean to tell me you're going to discriminate against my cousin because your perception of him is that he's just this white boy
Yeah.
who's had privilege all his life, not knowing most of the money his family got came from a bunch of black folks. So that type stuff, you know, it annoys me because I think the real issue is that black people want to transcend the limitations they have imposed upon them because they're black, but they just tend to fight everything. Like, they're trying to get out of like a cat in a bag. They're trying to get out, so they're just swinging, scratching, they're just doing everything they can to get out, but it's not necessarily the most productive means to go by.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, what I was going to say also about being in the high school is like, I was the only white person in a lot of my classes. And, you know, moving out here in the middle of high school, I didn't know anybody. Everybody already had their friends groups established and stuff. So for me, it was really tough because I didn't talk to anybody. I was mad for moving across the whole country, you know, Las Vegas to Maryland. That's coast to coast. You know, and I didn't have any family out here, and it was tough for me because like I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was mad all the time, and so I would just get picked on, like get beat up in the locker room, jump, this and that. They'd call me Billy.
Let me tell you something. They tried that with me because I didn't go to the same middle school.
Damn.
Even though I went to elementary school in the same area, I skipped the middle school, went out Suitland, and then I came back to the same area to finish high school, and that still
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
So yeah, for
people
me,
just looking at you as an outsider, but you
Yeah.
have that added dimension of your
Yeah.
race being a
it
part
was
of that.
tough, and it took me a while to like. I'm not gonna lie. At the beginning, I did kind of have a hatred because I'm like, what did I do? I don't even know these people. Why? So it's like, but I kind of grew out of that, and I met some good friends, and it kind of taught me a lot about. So I kind of got to see a smaller scale of like. I hate reverse racism is not a real term. It's just racism. But I got to see kind of a little bit of that from being at that school. And so all that to go back to the whole Twitter thing about like stay out of black people's business. It's like I have a perception on stuff that could add value to the conversation, and to just cut that off, I think that's just it's not
Yeah.
productive. you
I
know?
don't like those things. I
Yeah.
mean, I've even had conversations with black men who were, you know, angry in the comment section, but as soon as I just talk to them and let them know that I'm actually listening, I'm not here to
Right.
poke fun at your experiences, I'm here to actually hear what you're saying, it makes a world of a difference when you actually pay attention to people. So you might want to like put your guard up and make somebody pay for some injustice that somebody did years ago or down
Yeah.
the street, but just approach people with a new slate every time.
That's exactly what I learned, you know, from going to that school is like, there's going to be people who are assholes and there's going to be people who are good people. You know, it doesn't matter what skin color they are, where they came
Exactly,
from.
because you could have been albino, the only one in the
Uh-huh.
school, and they'd treat you the same fucking way.
Yep.
They just use a different term.
Yeah. Sorry, Snaz is texting me. Okay, he's on his way.
Cool.
We got time though. So I was gonna also ask, what were we gonna say?
I was about to say being trans and skating is not a problem.
Oh yeah, we
Most
kinda
people
glossed
don't
over that.
know. Most people don't care.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, your moves.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your gear. Like, nobody really cares.
And I didn't think it was. I just like to ask just because it's interesting. It's a different dynamic. But I feel like in skating, there's so many different types of people that just all have a passion for skating, and it's like none of that really matters. It's just about, hey, let's skate together. Let's do a trick. Let's do this. You know. But I was gonna ask you about privilege. What do you think about privilege? Uh-oh.
So part of that thing where they called me,
Go ahead.
they said I was holding internalized transphobia. They went down the list to say, well, you have this passing privilege, which is the ability to be read as non-trans, basically. Like, if somebody looks at you and they don't go, oh, that's a transsexual. Then they went, well, you have I want to say pretty privilege, but like, oh, you are so handsome or you look good, so you have beauty privilege. And I'm like,
Right.
you act like I woke up and paid for this shit and said and literally said, well, I'm going to use this to my advantage. It's like, it is what it is. Like, I thought I was ugly for a long time because I didn't fit the female standard. I got a lot of shit for that.
Right.
So it took me till I was like in my late 20s to understand that people legitimately found me physically attractive.
Right.
So I had like a lot of messed up experiences with like consent and my body with different people because I didn't understand like they're attracted to you. I didn't have that. You know, growing up butch or tomboy or just, you know, masculine as a female person, there's a standard on you about how your hair looks, how your
Sure.
skin looks,
Yeah.
how your clothes fit you, how your body is shaped, how you walk, you know, how you talk, how deep is your voice, how much
Yeah.
body hair do you have.
Right.
So I had sideburns like Ashanti and I was like 12 years old, you know, so I wasn't necessarily the most attractive person for most of my life as far as the standard goes. So for people to put that on me, I'm like, I just literally just started to learn what it means to be attractive. I'm minding my business.
Right. Right.
I live in my own world.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I feel like guys kind of have the same thing too. You know, like how strong are you?
How cut are you?
Yeah, like anything. Like how tall are you? And this and that. It's like, so I think there's standards everywhere. And I guess that kind of brings me back to the whole privilege question. Is like, I understand white privilege. I hate that term because it's like so charged. That word is so charged in like to mean like a negative context. You know what I'm saying? And I get that, but I feel like everybody has privilege to an extent.
To an extent, right? And so why I find the issue with that is that because a lot of the same people that will say that to you will also say something which is black is not a monolith, meaning we're not all the same. You know, you might see somebody who's in the higher upper, you know, in the upper class, they're different from someone in the lower class.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So,
I mean, look at white people in the trailer park.
Exactly, and
They
that's
get
how I
treated
grew up.
like
Most of the
garbage.
white people were
Yeah.
in trailer parks while we had the big houses.
Right.
So I didn't understand a lot of Black Lives Matter stuff until I really sat and thought
Oh,
about how other people,
careful.
No, for real, because they were like, oh, you know, cops this, cop that. Most of the cops in my county are black. If I saw a white cop, he would help me out. So it was just like this thing where it was a culture shock for me because I grew up in an area, even including D.C., there's a lot of brown people around me. So everybody in any position is brown.
Yeah.
If I go to the administrator office, they're all brown. If I go to the mayor office, they're all brown. So when they started the movement, I didn't understand it for a moment because I was also just still near college when around the time it started coming up. So I was like, what are they talking about? Like, if something happened to me, it's gonna be a black cop. But I had to think about people in other areas.
Right.
So it's, again, black is not a monolith. Our experiences are very different, and some might say my experience is not valid because it doesn't fit into that box of abused person by white people.
But that just also goes back to the whole thing. Is like everybody can add different stuff to the conversation. Like you would never get that perspective if you just went with the hive mind all the time. You know. But yeah, it's just, and that also goes back to what I was saying. You got to take people for who they are. Like each case by case basis is going to be different. You know, like I mean, I get comments all the time online of like, oh, a black person wouldn't be able to do this when I skate inside the mall or skate.
I could do it, I just choose not to.
Right. And I don't even like to do it, but I know it gets views.
Exactly, it's content. Like
I would never do that if I was like just not wanting to make content. But it's like, okay, yeah, you might say like a black person might not be able to do this. What if all the security guards are black and they don't like white people?
Especially when you talk about an area that's predominantly black and they're trying to keep it that way. I've seen it happen.
So it's like, oh, a cop, they'd be like, oh, I'd be thrown in jail if I did. I could be thrown in jail too if like the right person doesn't like white people.
Sometimes we
you know what I mean?
exaggerate,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we have such this notion that everything is going to be negative. Like my grandmother, she passed away at 100 years old, right before her
Holy
birthday at
smokes, wow.
101. Right, she passed away, and my father has worked since he was eligible for working. They have their own home for decades now. She
Right.
still thinks if you play music too loud, a white man is going to knock on your door and beat the crap out of you and
Wow.
arrest you. And I
Right.
said, that's trauma. That's a trauma
Yeah.
response that even though you live in the blackest county in America, everybody around you is Negro. I said that word. Everybody around you is a Negro. And you still think that somebody's going to call a white cop on you in your own home.
Right.
So I said that's
definitely trauma.
It is
And
trauma.
it's trauma, and I don't know her experience, obviously, so I don't know if what she had to deal with, if she's had those encounters before.
She was born 1913. Her parents were enslaved at some point in their life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So for sure, she definitely has
She saw some
trauma.
shit, yeah.
Right. Because I was just going to say that maybe there could be a chance that it's more just fear-mongering than anything. And
I
that's
mean,
just like
after a while, yeah,
yeah.
it is just fear mongering. It's like always be alert, always
Right.
be scared, always, do the least so you can get the most out of the years that you have
Right.
left. So I understand. Like one of my uncle, not my uncle, I keep calling him that. My cousin, he went to prison. He was framed by white people for a crime he didn't commit.
Oh, wow.
And he became an alcoholic after that, and he died in his apartment by himself. Due to just never getting over that trauma he felt and feeling alone. And there's a lot of black men out here who are like 40, 50 years old who have that same experience.
Yeah.
So again, you have to listen to people, even if you think if you see them doing things that are the sign of someone that is hurt, then listen to them.
Yeah.
It might bother you, then you need to remove yourself. Like if it's a conflict of interest, remove yourself. But you can't necessarily look at everybody negatively because you don't understand how they're acting due to their experiences.
Yeah.
You have to actually listen.
And I think we just have, the world is so negative all the time nowadays, and I think we just have an issue of like when racism was going on, well, I mean, it's still going on, but like to the extent it was like when we had slaves and stuff, I feel like white parents would teach their kids and instill those values of like, oh, these people are different from us, they're bad people, this and that, right? And that's horrible, obviously. But I think we're kind of starting to get to a point now where black parents are telling their children the same kind of ideas of like, white people hate you, white people this, cops are bad.
I grew up with that.
And I feel like that's making the world a not good place at all. Like, I feel like that just further...
It sours you.
It sours you, and it furthers that divide between different types of people. It's like, they're against us. You got to always watch your back.
But some of my best educators were white people.
Well, it doesn't...
Specifically
yeah.
white women.
Well, that's good, but... I mean,
That's the outlier. Again,
yeah.
that's that outside statistic.
not to discredit what you're saying, but I'm just... It's like, I feel like... I've had people tell me that, oh, you know what, you're like one of my first white friends that I had, like, that I like talking to. I'm like, what?
Oh.
He's like, yeah, my parents always told me that, you got to watch out for white people. And I guess I kind of got a little bit lucky because growing up in Vegas, it's a huge melting pot. Like, they say the country's a melting pot, but it's really divided
Certain
here.
spots, yeah.
It's super divided here. But in Vegas, you literally had every single type of person. It was predominantly white and Mexican and then black and then kind of divvied up between there. But I remember as early as like elementary school, I'd go over to my friend's house and he was black, and I met his dad and all that, and then we were just playing games, and then this white lady walks in. I'm like, who's that? He's like, oh, that's my mom. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that's never seen that before, but I remember that experience because I'm like, oh, that's a new thing. And I think I got lucky that I got to learn that early on so that it wasn't like a stigma or an idea that I had like of not being right or whatever.
I would say the same. On my father's side of the family, it's very mixed. It's very mixed. On my mom's side, it's more, homogenous. It's more brown people than, white or, other races. But on my dad's side, everybody look after each other. Everybody believes in, doing right by each other. And even if you mess up, you deserve forgiveness.
Right.
You deserve another chance. Your life should be long, so we can't necessarily spend your whole life holding grudges against you or holding your ancestors against you.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, I mean, just what you were talking about earlier, where how, like, you were saying most of that person's wealth, I forgot who you were talking about, was from a black family. What were you saying about
My
that?
cousin.
Your cousin. So
Every time we had the cookout, is
Yeah.
literally he's a minority. So everything his tone, the way he speaks is going to be it's going to come from us.
Right,
You
right.
know, the food he eats, the seasoning we use, everything he's going to be familiar with that more than white culture, whatever that ideal is.
it's boiled chicken. Boiled chicken is the cold
I
thing.
feed that to my dog. That's messed up. They need to stop.
If somebody ever fed me boiled chicken, I'd be gone.
No, he don't even really like it. He look at me like,
Nasty.
motherfucker.
Well, I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours.
Bruh.
It hasn't been a long podcast. I mean, I don't want to cut it off, but we do have another recording that we're going to do right after this, so we kind of have to get prepared for that. In the future, this is just a little taste, all right, guys? So in the future, it's going to be as long as it goes on, but today is just kind of a different day. And we're just starting, so we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to do everything. Do you have any questions for me? Do you have anything you want to ask?
I will have some,
Okay.
but that's for the next one.
All right. So, like I said again, please leave your comments in the comment section. We won't answer them next episode because obviously we're filming the next episode right now, but we will answer it in the subsequent episode. Anything else? Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to all the members. As always, hit the like button. Hopefully you guys enjoy this different sort of thing that we're doing here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully nobody got triggered.
We'll see.
Yeah. Do you want to say a prayer before we
I'm
close
not
it
that
out?
black.
I want to say a prayer.
You can say a prayer.
Okay, well, you'll pray with me at
Yes.
least. Okay. Dear Lord, thank you for everything today. Thank you for allowing us to do this podcast. Thank you to everybody who's watching. And I just want to, I don't know, I hope everyone has a good outlook on life. We can all grow as a people together. Please bring the divide closer than what it is now, because the world is evil. And I'm not good at praying, so we're just going to leave it at that. So thank you so much. Amen.
I hope that we can choose love.
There you go. See,
Oh, wait,
you
what
should've
my
done the
socks
prayer.
say? Diversity unites us.
Nice.
That's what they say.
Love it. Well, guys, thank you. Peace out.
Don't forget to ring the notification bell.